Gospel of today is from Gospel of Luke, chapter 6, verse 36 to 38. It says, "Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you will get back." Let's start understanding today's Gospel with verse 38. There are certain references mentioned which would be understandable to the audience of Jesus, but not to us. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. Given the attire of the audience of Jesus back then, if one would fold their cloak over their belt, a pouch could be formed to carry grain from the marketplace. Now, if this grain was shaken and running over, pressed down, as the Gospel says, the buyer was guaranteed a full and honest amount. For what you give, you would receive a full and an honest amount. This illustration shows God's generosity and how it overflows on our behalf. What we just understood was the outcome. Let's get into what leads to the outcome. The Gospel begins with the words, "Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful." You see, mercy is this towering rule of Christ's kingdom. We could go back and see this in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 9, verse 13. It says, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." Mercy is this towering rule in Christ's kingdom. Now, we all have this universal call to be holy. Back in ancient Israel, this quest for holiness meant something else, and we see this in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 2. "Say to all the congregation of the people of Israel, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." This quest for holiness in ancient Israel meant that one should separate themselves from anything that is ungodly, anything that is impure. This could extend even to the Gentiles and sinners. The quest for holiness means to be separated from the ungodly. This applied well to ancient Israel, right? But to the audience that Jesus is speaking to, Jesus wants to reformulate what this quest for holiness means. He wants to define this quest for holiness by being merciful, by extending your mercy to anybody. This is to emphasize that this family of God that is there, it is not restricted to some and open to others. There is no separation or wall to be into God's family. The ask in today's Gospel is to be merciful, is to not judge, is to not condemn, and to forgive. This can be a little difficult to do in practice. We are all naturally inclined to judge, to condemn others, to not forgive others. There are many ways to approach this. In all practicality, every difficult person you have come across is a product of their circumstances. If those circumstances change, they wouldn't be the person they are, even if it's difficult right now. Although it's very, very hard for them to go back in time and change the circumstances, and as much as we would like to change those circumstances ourselves, neither can we go back in time and change those. To empathize with them, to understand that they are a product of their circumstances would be the first step. This is a rather secular way of approaching this. Look at this a little biblical, in a biblical sense. We're asked to judge not. If you find this to be a little difficult thing, let's go back to the life of Jesus, where he himself said that he who is without sin can throw the first stone. How can we judge others when we ourselves are flawed in the same sense? The Gospel goes on to say, "Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." In life, we come across difficult people. and our response to them could come across in many ways. When Jesus was again approached by similar difficult people at a time when he was at utmost pain on the cross, his response was, "Father, forgive them, because they do not know what they do." When he himself, in that excruciating pain, could forgive others, how could we not? As much as I understand that it's difficult to be merciful, it is a challenge that you're all called to. And Lent, being this 40-day journey, is the ideal time to start putting this into practice or to push ourselves in that direction. At the end of the day, we're all called to be holy. And the quest for holiness, as Jesus tries to explain, is in being merciful. There is a Catholic bishop in the United States called Bishop Robert Barron. He emphasizes the same thing. We are all called to be saints. And a saint is someone, as he defines, a saint is a person whose every aspect of his life is gathered towards tender mercy. As we are journeying through Lent, as we are going through a time of renewing our minds, let's approach our world a little more mercifully, a little less judgmentally. Let's condemn less, and above all else, let's forgive more.